What's up guys, David here, MixBus TV. Hope you're all having a great day. In this video, I am going to give you the greatest and most important lesson and concept about mixing low end ever. This ain't a clickbait. You will let me know if I'm wrong in the comments down below. Actually, I'm not even sure I want to do this and give this away, but because I am doing it, y'all owe me, and I will collect, not for myself though, I will collect when Bella's new stuff is gonna come out. You ready? Let's go. Before we start, you know the drill. Check the info box down below for all the links, free plugins, special discounts. Please check the new website, mixbustv.com. You will find there all the new mix and mastering courses, including mixing hip-hop 2023, EDM 2023, and soon to be released rock. You can also book me for private lessons, mix consultation, mix and mastering, and so on. And of course, you can also join the channel by clicking the button right here and access the exclusive content. And if you're liking the videos, consider supporting the channel right now by using the super thanks. Let's get to it. Okay, so what inspired this video, first of all, is a recurring problem that I found on many mixes that I receive for consultations for members or clients. And the problem is, of course, low end. That is a specific problem with the low end that we are gonna address today. Obviously, problems with low end, either too much or too little or too uncontrolled, come 99% of the time from what? From not having a proper monitoring system. Not only a monitoring system that goes low enough, but that goes low enough without distortion and goes low enough while keeping the balance. And of course, to have that, you have to have either big speakers or a set of satellites with a sub or multiple subs. A lot of people will say, what about headphones? While it's true that there are amazing headphones out there that can somehow reproduce lower frequencies with acceptable levels of distortion, there is a case to be made for air moving. And to have air moving, you need a physical big ass driver. There's no way around it. That's why there are big speakers and they are used. Because at the end of the day, low end is not just something that we hear, like the mid-range or the top end. It's something that I wanna say, for the most part, we feel. Is the vibration, is the air moving, is the pressure. And for that to happen, you have to have real estate. You have to have big speakers, you have to have big drivers. But are you doomed if you don't have those? No, and this video hopefully will help you tremendously in understanding your low end if you are in a non-ideal situation. Okay, so let's take, for example, this song that was sent to me for a mix consultation. Overall, it's a great mix, okay? But we have one problem. And of course, if you do have big speakers or a set of satellites with sub in your studio while listening to this video, you will be able to hear the difference. It's when we play the mix and you switch between small speakers and big speakers. And at the same time, I will also film my TC Electronic RTA, which is an extremely accurate analyzer, more accurate than most plugins out there. And you will be able to see the differences between this mix and the others that I will play. And that visual representation will also be an eye-opener. Okay, so let's play the mix.
Be my girl, let me call you my boo.
Okay, I'll stop here. It's enough. Shout out to Daniel, by the way. I didn't ask him if I could play this little snip of his mix, but he's a friend. I'm sure he's okay. So before taking a look at things, if you have a pair of small speakers, pay attention to when second 24 comes with this big hit, right? Try to listen to what happens to the song. All right, so there's a big difference between this first hit and the second hit, this one. If you're listening to small speakers, you will hear very well the second hit because it's a higher note, right? Nothing unusual. Usually that's the case. On small speakers, you will hear the higher notes. You will most likely completely miss and not be able to hear the lowest note, which is in this case our first hit at 24 seconds. But if you are on low speakers and you're paying attention to what happens and how the mix sounds, how the vocal sounds, and everything else, you will start to understand the concept that we're gonna unfold in this video. What happens is there's a feeling very similar to a car hitting red line and the driver is not shifting gear. The engine keeps pushing against red line, but the car is not going any faster. Not only that, but the engine starts suffering, right? And this is what's happening here. The vocals start distorting and there's this feeling of something vibrating and really not giving us any more energy than the hit before or after, because what's happening is this massive amount of low end that is in this mix. In particular, the fundamental is 30 and below. And there is so much of that energy, of that sub energy, that it makes the little speaker vibrate uncontrollably and it distorts everything. Because of course, again, we don't have a three-way, we don't have a sub, we have basically a full range driver with a tweeter, right? So the little guy will try to reproduce everything. And on phones, this doesn't really happen that much because they already have an HPF filter built in, most of them, probably all of them by now. Same for laptops, but smaller speakers like the portable JBLs or some Bluetooth speakers don't. So that's when you hear, you know, the guy, especially here in LA, you hear it all the time. They pass with the bicycles or motorcycles and they have a portable speaker, turn the volume all the way up and everything distorts like crazy. Of course, it's because, you know, those speakers distort a full volume, but it's also because of this. Because there's so much low-end energy that cannot be reproduced, but it's still going through the media, that it makes the drivers vibrate so much and everything else distorts. So this is part of the concept. If you have too much or uncontrolled low end in your song, it's not just the low end distorting, it's the physical speakers starting to distort and it will reproduce badly the entire spectrum, all right? So let me show you on the RTA what's happening. You see how far down that is? Let me show you what frequency that is. Okay, you see it? The fundamental is a 31 hertz going to 40 and even a little down below. Now, is the problem that the song goes that low? No, it's not. Many songs go that low. The problem is how much of that sub energy is in this mix. Because this is the next important part of this lesson. The truth is you don't need that much energy down below. Why? Because if you think about it, it's very simple. The speakers that are able to reproduce that low are already huge. They are already big and they already output so much low end. Even more if you think about a subwoofer or subwoofers in cars, even worse, right? All you need is a little bit of energy below 40, let's say at 30 or even lower. When you have a mix that zeros at 30, when the rest of the bandwidth is much lower in level, right? So that energy, that range, the energy in that range is so much. That is going to cause distortion on smaller speakers. Your problem is not that the speakers cannot reproduce that range. Your problem is that those speakers will try to. So it will distort everything else. And of course, why that happens? Because you can't hear it. Because most people cannot hear 30 hertz and they can't hear it correctly, okay? It's either super hyped up because of the bass reflex on smaller speakers, trying to extend the efficiency, which is completely different from having a huge 120-pound speakers that actually can reproduce that low end free of distortion and at a decent level, or they just can't even go there, so when mixing you just don't even hear it. And so it's either too little because people are afraid and they had experience in the car, everything vibrating, so they cut too much, or they follow the stupid ass YouTubers telling you to cut your master a 40 and a 17. I literally just saw someone with an EDM channel literally giving the advice of cutting your master a 30 and a 17. Okay, digressing, sorry. I got emotional with shit like this. But the point is, this is why it happens, right? Either you hear it too much or you don't hear it enough. Sub-range is very hard. Sub-range is very expensive to monitor correctly. That's why it happens. And then we'll also take a look now at some of my mixes, and I'll show you the difference, which visually is gonna be almost a detail, right? One of those details that people say, oh, it doesn't matter, just 5%. But that's the difference between something that, like this, causes problems on small speakers and something that actually translates well. And it translates well on both big speakers and small speakers. So before I do that, let me wrap up this concept. What do you do when you have a sound that goes that low, right? And it's clean, because that's the other part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that when a bass, a sine wave, an 808 is clean, it's gonna be hella hard to make it translate to small speakers. That's why we use saturation, that's why we use distortions. That's why usually in my mixing courses, I show you guys many times, I make a parallel and just focus on the mid-range and just tuck it in so we can hear the articulation of the main 808 or sub, which is extremely low, is extremely clean, and simply cannot be translated on small speakers. This concept aside, what do you do when you have a sine wave that goes down to 30 and it's totally clean? Well, you mix it, obviously, you don't cut it, but what you have to keep in mind is this. Big speakers already output a ton of low end. So you don't need what we've seen on the RTA to max out that range. Actually, you need to control it, and then you need to dose it, and that's where every single inch, quarter, a tenth of an inch count. Because when you compete with other people maxed out the sub-range. We all want a big low end, right? Everybody else is able to monitor it, so they will max it out as much as they can without causing problems on other smaller systems. So if you're not at that level, your mix will always sound skinnier and less powerful than, the big guys. So you wanna match, you wanna be there. The 1%, it counts. The 1% is everything. And then we could talk about analog and how analog helps you with the low end and translation and all that. That's not the video. So you don't cut it, you control it. And then by having the right monitoring system, you dose it correctly. For the translation on small speakers, like I said, if it's clean, it will translate as much as it will translate. If you want to dirty it up a little bit, that's just how it's going to be. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't need to hear every single note out of every single instrument on every single, media. It's also impossible. But if you want to have a little bit of translation on small speakers, when you have a sine wave like that, you just add a little bit of saturation, mid-range, or a little in the low mids. I have plenty of courses that will show you how to do that. That will help. So now we'll take a look at the RTA. And if we go to this mix, for example, this is one of the new Bella songs, you will see the difference and you will hear it. Now this is just as low, but there's less energy at that 30 hertz. And the bulk of the energy is instead shifted slightly higher, but it's enough for it to translate here and still take your head off on the big speakers. So let's take a look at this.
Good times until not tight. You know what you're doing, you know how you're moving. Days dark lipstick on those cherry blossom lips. You know what you're doing, you know how you.
All right, so we've seen the energy is slightly higher, the bulk of the energy. But we still have information at 31 and below, okay? If we take this other mix, same thing.
All I need is to let you go, please stay above me. All I need is to feed off you, you can feed off me. All I need is to let you go, please stay above me. You don't really wanna know deep beneath me, 'cause
Okay, there's still energy, but it's much lower. Why? Because the speakers are huge. The speakers that can reproduce that range are huge already. They will move so much air, and it's, again, 30 hertz. It's not something you really hear with your ears. You feel it with your body. So all you need is a little bit of air, not a little bit, is already a lot of air moving, even if it's not that much energy, okay? And that in turn will do two things. It will keep everything else above that sub-range clean when playing in smaller speakers. By shifting the energy a little higher, you will translate in small speakers. If you're listening to these two clips that I just played, you will hear the bass on small speakers, but you couldn't before. You only hear the higher notes, right? And if you play the infamous throat, which is also at ridiculous high level, as we've seen in previous videos, not by design, it just happened, for LUFS long term. That's pretty insane, with one of the cleanest low end ever. And you will also hear that at some point there's this taped stop effect where the bass sine wave glides from the fundamental down to basically zero. So it literally shakes the walls, and it's still clean.
hands on my neck, hands grab my throat. Lift me up, man, take control. Heart is so gone, my type. Don't you know I fall for the bad type? You play the role of an angel.
If you paid attention right there, we've seen the 808 going down to literally zero. Let me go to that spot.
Don't you know I fall for the bad type? You play the role of an angel.
Once again.
Don't you know I fall for the bad type? You play the role of an angel pretty well.
Okay? You hear the bass, you hear the kick, you hear everything there, and you can see on the TC Electronic how much energy there is in that range. And I promise you, if you have big speakers, if you play the song on the big speakers, the bass will shake the walls. So I also hope walk the walk, and I don't just talk to talk, so you know that my concept translate in real life, because there's proof. My stuff is out there, okay? The difference between these and the first track, right? That 30 hertz was pinning down the entire time, was making the small speakers vibrate and distort, even a lower volume, because simply it gets fed so much energy at such a low range that it would stress anything. I think that's pretty much it. So the concept again is, yes, you need that sub energy. Absolutely, you need it. But keep in mind that the media, the speakers, the systems that are able to reproduce that range, they are already big and they will move a lot of air and you will feel them. So you don't need that much range down there. But if you cut it, like the YouTubers tell you, you'll cut your mixes balls. We talked about this many times, okay? Let's not go there again. As you know, if you follow me or if you have any of my mixing courses, there are tricks to fool our brain into perceiving a deeper and higher in level low end, more powerful low end than it actually is, okay? And then lastly, again, this happens for clean sine waves that you can't or don't want to saturate even in parallel or partially part of the spectrum, because that's the go-to trick. It's not the only one, mind you, but it's the go-to trick, and it works very well to translate bass lines on smaller speakers. But keep that in mind. You're not translating the low-end power when we saturate. We only do that because otherwise we wouldn't understand the articulation of our 808 or bass line, okay? That goes for rock, hip-hop, any genre. We don't translate the power, we just translate the voice of the bass instrument that we are processing at that moment. For this video, we can stop here. I think it's already gonna be a big eye-opening, I hope so. And if you have questions, leave them in the comment down below. If you like this video, consider using the super thanks. Go check out the new website, mixbusstv.com, with all the mixing courses. Booking for everything is all there. Click the join button, become a MixBustTV member, and access all the exclusive content. Like the video, share it if you think it's gonna help other people. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up, man, take control. Heart is so